Organs are basically, they produce their sound by blowing air through pipes. Now, we don't have pipes showing here, but we have all kinds of pipes, about 2,000 behind that facade. This is a bellows, and in the days of Bach, say for instance, in the 1700s or 1800s, of course we didn't have electricity in the 1700s, so you would get a person, a large version of this, and step on it, and that would blow air into a reservoir, and then when you pressed a key, that would let the air go through the pipe and make a sound. And you can also blow air in the opposite direction, and you could attach something to that, and it could push something, force something, make something work. So basically, they were machines, terrifically complex, that did everything by air. And it has 3 keyboards, and they look much, well, they're almost identical with piano keyboards, except they're a little shorter. They're 5 octaves instead of 88 keys, 61 instead of 88. They have different names, and they're not called keyboards. We call them manuals. And the reason they're called manuals is because you use them manually, and you also use your feet down here with the pedals. So we've got everything going. My hands, my feet, just everything, and my brain. Why do we have more than one? It's so that you can play, say for instance, a melody on one keyboard and accompany it on the other keyboard. I think some people who have an electronic organ in their home or have seen one have, generally speaking, at least 2 manuals. The world's largest organ is in New Jersey, and it has 7 manuals. Now, if you stop and think about 7 of these piled up, they'd be so far forward you couldn't even touch them. So what they do is they tilt them. Now, they have different names. This top one is called a swell organ. Why swell? Well, because I have a pedal down here, and I can open and close the whole of the pipes for this keyboard are enclosed in a box, and it has Venetian shutters, like Venetian blind, on the front of it, and I can open and close them gradually. So I can make the sound swell or disappear. This keyboard is called the Great, and it's the main keyboard. It is not enclosed, so I can't change the volume. All I can do is add pipes or take them away. And this one is called the Choir, and it also is enclosed, and it has, so I can make it quiet or louder. Now, each of these keys, let's take this one, for instance. If I pull one stop, these are stops. If you think about, sometimes people will say, got to pull out all the stops. Well, where that comes from is from organs, because the more stops you pull out, the louder it gets, and the more is going on. So let's take one simple little stop. This is the standard kind of sound that most people associate with an organ. It's called a diapason, and it's a certain type of pipe. And there's one pipe for each of these keys. And this is called a diapason 8-foot. And what that means, all of the stops have feet associated with them. The reason being that the lowest note on this keyboard, that is 8 feet long, which is pretty long. That's about 2 inches. So everything in between is just gradually. If I take this note, that's middle C, and an 8-foot stop, because this is 8 feet, that's middle C. If I pull another stop that says 4 feet, it's an octave higher. And 2 feet, and even in between. This is and that's all of them together. That's 16 feet. I should just demonstrate the 16 foot. Now I don't think, sorry, I've got another stop on. I don't think you'll be able to hear that because it depends on how you're playing this, what you're playing it through. So that's too low. The biggest pipe in this organ are 16 feet long, which is pretty long. The longest pipes, and they're only found in 2 organs in the world, are 64 feet long, which, if you even can imagine that, is absolutely huge. A person could stand inside one of those pipes. It would be this big around. All right, stops. Each stop has a full set of pipes. If you keep adding them, that's why we get 2,000 pipes back there. They make various different sounds. As I said, this is the standard sound of a church organ. We also have flutes, and this is a flute sound. Or this sound. Slightly different. We also have what are called string stops. Now they don't literally sound like a violin, but they don't sound like a flute either. Here's the flute, just nice sound, and this is, it's quite different. If we add another stop that's tuned slightly off, we get a kind of a beating effect, and this is called a celeste sound. So here's the stop, string stop.
One of the ones I really like is the harp sound, and use it for an old hymn like Beast of My Soul.
So we've got flutes. We've got the diapason, which is a standard sound for an organ, and we have reeds as well. Now this is an imitative stop, an oboe, supposedly. Now if I add a tremulant, quite a different sound. This is a trumpet type of sound called a cornopian.
The chimes, very effective for weddings or at Christmas time. Or with contemporary worship music, such as the Deer Pants. As the deer pants for the water.
Now we also have some other imitative stops. For instance, this is a clarinet. It's actually a pretty nice sound for a clarinet. Let's see. I'll just try a little bit of this to give you an idea. It's a pretty good imitation, I think. Now, up here, if you can see this, these are called couplers. And what they do is they allow me to, say, take the stops that are up here, the sounds that come from here, and move them down here if I want, or up here. It all depends on what I'm playing and when I'm playing a particular piece. So, for instance, if I have a stop up here, that's called a vox humana. It's supposed to sound like a human voice. I don't think it really does, but it's a very distinctive sound. And if I wanted to play it down here instead of up there, I would simply do swell to choir. Where is swell to choir? And now it's down here instead of just up there. Yeah, I should explain the pistons. What do the pistons do? There are always pistons under the keyboards. All they do is you can program them. And so you can have certain combinations of stops on each one. There are 5 here, 4 there, and 3 for this keyboard. And they just pop out. When I press this, air pressure pops those 2 out. If I press number 2, different set, 3, a different set, 4, a different set. They're all different combinations, and I can program them.